Hi, my name is Mary Ogutu Mukolwe, Mrs. Mukolwe. I have been married for 2 years in November. Yes, and today's episode we're going to talk about grief.
And this is,
And this is
and this
and this
is, and this is Dear Brother.
so basically I have lost quite a number of people, but closest to me, I have lost a child and my father within a span of 1 year, all of them together. And then all this happened through my transition to marriage as well. So in 2019, October, I lost our very first baby girl. And fast forward to June 2021, I lost my dad. And it had been quite the journey, because these are things that I got to experience all at once, and it was very, very huge for me. So let's go back to 2019. At the time when I had conceived the child that we lost, I did not want to be pregnant at the time, because I had just finished college and it was a transitory time. I don't know if that's a correct word, but it was during that transition from school and to work. Now I remember nilikuwa nina job hunt at the time, and then I got pregnant. So I remember I really, really did not want to be pregnant, and as a result, I was also afraid. So I didn't tell anyone I was pregnant. So I kept it a secret for 6 months, and then I told my mom eventually. Actually, someone else saw me pregnant, and then they told my sister, and then my mom, and then yeah, that's how the news was broken. So at the time, after them knowing and nini, I warmed up to the idea of being pregnant, and I actually bonded with the child that was in my belly. So by the time it got to October, when the child was to be born, remember we went to the hospital, nini. That was on the 22nd or 23rd morning. Yes, on the 23rd, the morning of the 23rd, we were at the hospital, was checked in, yes, and everything. But I gave birth rather on the 24th in the afternoon. So yes, my baby was born, but didn't cry. And I remember there was like a sense of hope at the time when the child came out, because I thought the doctors will fix it. I had so much trust in the doctors. I was like, they'll fix it. So I remember the baby was taken. I was taken back to the ward and told everything will be okay. You just rest, because it was quite the experience. I had not eaten anything, I remember, between the 22nd between the 23rd to the 24th when I gave birth. So I was quite weak, I was quite tired. So I remember at the time after leaving the delivery room, I was very hopeful. I waited and I thought I even had like a whimper or like a voice, a tiny voice of my child, like making a sound, crying ish, but not crying for real, for real. And I remember being very hopeful. And then kidogo kidogo, one of the midwives anakuja kaniita, and the face that the guy had was information enough for me to know that things aren't all right. So walked back into the delivery room, and then I see my mom's face, and I was done. I didn't even need to be told what has happened, and I found out that the child didn't make it. So a series of things had happened before, leading to the child not making it. It was a lot of negligence from the hospital, but then part of me still blamed myself, because I remember I had not wanted to be pregnant in the beginning of the pregnancy. So part of me felt as if that was a punishment. I was like, okay, that is that's the punishment for not wanting to be pregnant, so you're not going to have the child. So yeah, so yes, but there are a few things. I also wondered if maybe missing the first 6 months of the prenatal, what are they called? The clinic visits that people go for before like giving birth and everything. I wondered if not going for those were the reason, or rather starting late, because I started taking my supplements and meds way later into the pregnancy, and so many questions. And I remember feeling so numb at the time, like I didn't believe, even going to sleep on the night after knowing that I had lost a child. I remember like I blacked out completely, and when I woke up and realized where I was hit by such a heavy sadness. I cried myself to sleep a majority of the time. Like I think during that week, because we buried the child a week later, which was also very important to me, because there's the option of either leaving the child at the hospital or either the dead body at the hospital, or you bury, because they are really young. So I remember it was important to me that we get to send our child off, like yeah, in a good way, and just see them go. Part of it also gave us some kind of peace. So yeah, so after that, I remember I questioned God a lot. I was I was in such a dark place. I was like, you would get me this far just so that you can take the child, you know? And I remember when I was pregnant, at the time when I had warmed up to being pregnant, I didn't know the gender of the child, and for me, this was one of my first experiences hearing from God. By the way, I was not as staunch as I am right now in my faith. So at the time, as I was saying, I got the name Ivana. So I decided to look it up. I felt in my heart that I was carrying a baby girl. And at this point, as I had mentioned, I had not started clinic of any kind. At the time, it was such a short burst where I felt some sense of happiness and wanting to have the child. And the name Ivana just came into my mind all of a sudden. So I went to Dr. Google. I Googled the meaning of the name Ivana, and the meaning was God's gracious gift. I was like, okay, God, you're speaking. But at the time, I didn't want to hear. But I was also happy. It was quite interesting. I was very confused, but I carried that with me. So fast forward up to the time when I was able to now start clinic afresh, or rather start clinic. I went for the ultrasound where you get to see the gender, and we actually found that it was a girl, and I was like, yo, God actually spoke to me, and I was like, this is a gift, like I'm carrying a gift in itself. So yeah, and then I go ahead and give birth in October, and we lose the child. So I was very confused. I was like, why would you give me a gracious gift and take it away before I can even enjoy the gift? So yeah, so I went through a long process of questioning and asking God what is happening, make it make sense. At some point I even thought my kid would resurrect during that week. I was hopeful. I really wanted the child to come back to life. I was like, okay, maybe it's a joke. Maybe you're testing my faith. But she didn't resurrect. So yeah, and moving on to now, my relationship. At the time during the pregnancy, we weren't in the best terms with my husband, with my now husband. At the time, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. But moving on now, after losing this child, it brought us back together. So I remember we went for counseling therapy together from immediately after losing the child, because I remember we were together on the day when the child died. And so we started our therapy, counseling therapy, immediately after, because I remember it was in October, so by November we were going to see someone. So we did it together. So through November, December, we finished in January 2021. we were doing this counseling, and like now is when I see, sorry, that was 2020, 2019 through to 2020, sorry. So like as I was saying, now is when I see the necessity of that happening. It was horrible, but then it brought us together. Like, that's also another story for another day in my head. How we started with my now husband. We knew each other for so long, and now here we were having a child and losing the child, and now going through therapy. And the therapy in itself was, ilikuwa ni kama couples therapy as well, because we learned so much about each other through the grief therapy. And yes, so fast forward, we move into now 2021, and we are doing things, and Corona came. That was also another blessing in disguise for us, because now it became a crash course for us as a couple, because now we were together every single day. Every single day till Corona, or at least till the restrictions were lifted. Because I remember at the time, he wasn't signed at a team anymore. So everyone was home because there's no one to watch soccer, there's no one to play soccer. So, and I as well was I was managing a business, and we closed it off because it was a quad bike business at the time. So there was no one who was going to work as well. So we were on a serious crash course. We dated each other thoroughly, more than we would have ever dated each other before. So yeah, so went on. Then come June 6th. So my late father's birthday was on the 31st of May. So I did not grow up with my father. Little background story. We didn't grow up with a dad in the home. So I came to know my father in my older teenage. So yeah, so I got to know my father for a very short period of time. I didn't know him as a child. So getting to know my father, it was also a very interesting period, because it was too many emotions jumbled up. And once I came to meet him, it was just so much. I was angry, I was happy, I was expectant, I was feeling so many things all at once. And I remember our very first meeting, he acknowledged, he was like, I know I have not been in your life for the longest time, all your life, but and he said that he's not expecting rainbows and fireworks. He was not expecting it to be the best, but he was asking for a chance to start where we were. And I remember that softened my heart. I was like, okay, I know I'm angry, I know I have so many questions to ask, but yeah, so my heart softened, and I decided, okay, what do I have to lose? I might as well give this person a chance, at least to be in my life. So yeah, so we had quite a bit of hangouts. So he would come get me from my mom's home, and then we go, we sit, we pick each other's brains, and just get to know each other. And with the kind of personality I have, I take so much time to warm up to people. So yeah, it was always more of, you, what do you want? You, who are you? Are you lying? Because I had my defenses up so high. I never wanted or never want anyone to walk into my life and just take advantage of my niceness, my kindness, you know. But I gave it a chance, and slowly I warmed up to him, and our hangouts were now more fun than just picky and questioning and just eyeing and wanting to see where he's lying, you know. And it just became more of enjoying this human being as my father. Also took so much time before I ever called him dad, because I remember when I was younger, I was so hopeful. I used to be hopeful that our father would come home, you know, one day. and we'll be one big happy family. We didn't grow up in a very privileged home. My mom raised us as a single mom, and it was tough majority of the time. And I remember there are times when I would cry, and I'm like, if our dad was here, maybe it would have been better. Maybe he would have been the one to comfort my mom on tough days, and it was not the same seeing your cousins grow up with a dad. At some point, it also affected how I related with men. I used to look at men as bad people. Never used to give them any time of day. Like anytime a man would speak anything, I'm like, you're lying. Just stop lying. But yeah, it was quite something to now have him in my life. And then I remember, as I have mentioned, I was very hard to warm up to people. So our relationship wasn't at now the best. We are talking every day. It would be very on and off. There are times when I would look for him. There are times I'm like, I want him. He doesn't want to look for me. It was just a lot of bumps. But one thing that was for sure was that I truly cared for him, and I knew that upon his demise. Because now in June 6th, 2020, June 6th, 2020, I remember my mom got a phone call from one of the relatives from that side, akiambiwa the horrible news. So my dad had suffered from cancer, thyroid cancer. We found out in 2020 as well. I think 2020 or 2019, but at the time I didn't think it was that serious. I was like, it's so minor, that one they'll do a surgery and he'll be fine. But he had been undergoing chemo for quite some time. He even moved from Nairobi, went back to Samia, and he was back there. But when you talk to him, he was such a jolly person, by the way. When you talk to him on the phone, he would be like, yeah, I'm good, I'm okay. I went for chemo, nini, I'm good. Like, he sounded just fine, and I'm like, okay, he must be okay, but I didn't know that he was carrying all that pain, all that strain from being sick, because there was also something he didn't want people to see him sick. So it was hard to make his own arrangements that are going to see him, because he never wanted anyone to see him at his weakest. And unfortunately, that's also something I've picked up. Yeah, but I remember on 31st of May, that was his birthday. That was the very last time I spoke to him, when I was wishing him happy birthday. And it was, I think, a Friday. And I remember after wishing him happy birthday and asking him how things are going, he's like, good. As a matter of fact, I'm scheduled for surgery on Monday. I don't know if it was a Friday or a Saturday, but yeah, one of those days. He was like, he's scheduled for surgery on Monday, and I was like, yeah, stay strong, don't worry, we will get through this. Like, we will get to the other side of things. And and then on Saturday, he died on Friday night. So on Saturday we are called, and my mom is given the horrible news. And interestingly enough, once again, I think God spoke to me in the middle of that week. I think on a Wednesday. It was still during COVID times. We were on a walk with my now husband, then boyfriend, and I remember telling him how all of a sudden I feel a sense of sadness. I was so sad. I remember crying on that day. I was like, my dad is sick. I can't even travel to see him because we are on lockdown. It was just too much, and I cried and wept. Oh my god, is it wept or wept? Wept, yeah. And yeah, and then on Saturday we get this horrible news. I remember my mom was on the phone and she didn't even say anything. She was just like, yeah, this is Margaret. Before I knew it, my mom was like, okay, sawa. She went to the bedroom and she cried, and I was like, yo, the last time I saw my mom cry like this was when my mom's sister, our aunt, died. That was kitambo, and we were still in primary school, and I knew someone had died. And before she could even tell me, because I remember she was very hesitant to say, what had happened, because she was trying to see what state of mind I was in, because remember we had lost a child not so long ago. So at this period I was just getting back to myself. So yeah, so my mom comes in and tells me, Mary, I have just received news that your dad is dead. I was in shock. I was in shock for a whole day. Didn't know what to do with that information. It was hard for me to process, and it was too much. I remember I was in shock for a full day, and on the same day, that Saturday, we were going to see my niece and nephew, and I couldn't cancel because now we were receiving news at like 12 noon, and we were supposed to be leaving at 1 p.m. So I just went about my business as usual, went and saw my niece and nephew, and I remember I even have pictures from that day. I remember we were just seated. I was normal, like nothing was happening. So on our way back, we were with my husband, then boyfriend. So on our way back, I remember he asked me, Mary, are you okay? You seem odd. And that question alone was enough for me to cry. I cried, and I cried. Because now everything was just becoming real all of a sudden. So yeah, so after that, I didn't know what to do with that information. Every night when I'd go to sleep, and then you wake up, and then you realize, yo, this person is not here anymore. Like all the things I had wanted to do, to share, he didn't even know he was going to be a grandfather. He didn't even know that I had lost a child. That was the most interesting thing, because I didn't know how to tell him that I had lost a child when he was sick. It was just too much. And at the time, I think I had conceived my son now, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, it was news that I was happy to share, but he never got to know. And those are some of the things that I grieved. I grieved the fact that he never got to experience the things that I'm experiencing now. Never got to meet my husband, never got to meet his grandchild, never got to experience me as an adult right now, never got to hear so many things. And on top of that, I think I still grieved the fact that he also never got to see me as a child. He never got to experience the type of person that I was. And I remember part of my grief was coupled up with a lot of anger as well, because I was angry and it was very misplaced. I didn't know whether I was angry at myself, at God, my father, or all of them, you know. And it was very tough, I remember. And my kind of the kind of person that I am, I tend to carry a lot of I carry my own burden. I don't like to burden people with my problems. So majority of the time I used to walk around with all this emotion, and not so many people would know. I would put my best face and present my best version, but so many people didn't know that I was carrying a lot of ache, a lot of pain. If anything, majority of these feelings I got to process them this year. And slowly God has revealed the things that he was doing. You see, the Bible verse that usually says he works everything out together for our good, for the good of those who love him. I have seen him work out everything that has happened, everything that has broken my heart, everything that has brought me down. I now see how he's worked them out for my good. During the time when we were grieving Ivana, we didn't know that we would have the blessing, of Corona, because at that time is when we were able to court each other seriously. And maybe if I had the child, I might have raised that child as a single parent, because I remember I didn't want anything to do with my then spouse, and not for any particular reason, just because I didn't want to share. I felt like he brought a burden upon me. It was not because he was a bad person, it was not because his character was poor, Like, if anything, I am truly blessed to have the kind of partner that I have, because he didn't stop. He still pursued, he still tried. He tried up until we got to our breakthrough, you know? And slowly, I didn't realize the grief that I carried. I brought it into our marriage as well, because the fears that I had, I didn't even realize I had them up until I reacted in certain ways in my marriage and treated situations in certain ways that I was not supposed to. Is when I realized I'm still grieving, I'm still angry, I'm still sad, I'm still frightened. Because I remember some of my fears are losing the child that I have now, that we have now, you know. And I was like, yo, maybe iko short lived. It's not for the long run. Don't be too excited, you know, you never know. And slowly, God has been working that in me and removing those things. Like, it's not in my control. And I have learned slowly to surrender and just leave it up to Him. Like, it's not in my power. It's not in my power. And in the event that things happen the way I don't want them to, I have come to make peace with the fact that God is the one that has us all. And He ultimately knows why things happen the way that they happen. And He has my back, you know? Like, he's the one that is carrying us. Like, there's not much I can do as Mary, you know. The most I can do is just pray and trust Him nonetheless. So yeah, that's my story.
Wow.